I think a lot of people perceive that it's just the kind of thing where every once in a while you get a heads up about something you have to respond to, because the management company does everything. The reality is that you are essentially on call every single day of the week. We manage the management company and make sure that they're meeting all their contractual obligations. So while we don't work on HOA items all day long every day, because of course, that would be unrealistic, we do respond to things almost every day.
I get a lot of calls personally. I usually would wake up in the morning and I'd get calls first thing in the morning. Oh, my pool card doesn't work. Well, I haven't received my statement. My neighbor's dog is barking. This man won't share the responsibilities of getting the fence replaced. Are they allowed to have chickens? Why do I hear chickens? They'll send you videos of recordings. Tony had a situation recently with the police where a child at the pool was hit by an adult.
Some people were playing around, and apparently there was a resident who, although it was concealed, it wasn't obvious they were drinking alcohol, but they apparently were drunk. And the gentleman got upset, threw something at a 10-year-old child. His 18-year-old big brother wasn't happy with that and was yelling at the guy, and it ended up getting into a fist fight situation. So I'm getting a call then at that point from the owner of our pool monitor, our lifeguard company, and he's telling me what's going on and asked if a board member could show up. Well, at this point, I know all of our board members have day jobs, as do I, but I'm a realtor, so I have a little bit more flexibility. So I immediately went over to the ranch hand pool in this case and talked to everybody involved and waited until the police arrived, and didn't leave until almost an hour later, just to make sure that the peace was being maintained.
You have to come in with a positive attitude, wanting to help, and it can be very challenging at times, but you do. You need to come in with a positive attitude. You can't come in, even if you're frustrated and you want to get on the board because you're frustrated with the way things are, and you're going to go in and you're going to wrestle it all up, and you have to go in willing to work together to get to a common goal of what's good for the neighborhood.
If you come onto the board thinking you're going to come aboard guns a-blazing, this isn't for you. Because if you're running with the intention of learning what's going on, learning why maybe some things aren't getting done, and maybe also learning why sometimes enforcement in certain areas have to be stepped up. Unless you're willing to spend a little bit of time asking some questions and seeing why things are the way they are, you're not really going to be able to evoke a lot of change. You're going to have a lot more conflict if you come in with a bunch of assumptions. Because we've seen these conflicts come up during board meetings. There was one time so far in my tenure, and I think that was a previous year that I was president, when I had to slam my hand down on a table at a meeting at the school because residents started arguing with residents. It started getting so loud and everybody was being so disrespectful because assumptions were being made on both sides. So just to maintain order, I had to slam it down and tell people to behave appropriately so we could listen to each other. And that's the other thing too. As a board member, you have to be willing to listen to input and not take any of this stuff personally, because people see it from their perspective. And you can only hope that you're going to communicate well enough for people to understand your perspective.
See people comment and say, well, y'all can't pass any rules without a 70% vote. I always use the analogy that the bylaws are the Constitution, and just like Congress, they can pass laws as long as they don't conflict with the Constitution.
The bylaws are like the Constitution. They do require a 70% vote, and that's by statute. So our hands are tied. There's certain things we can't even change the fact that the bylaws state that we're not supposed to park in our driveways.
Overnight,
yeah, and that is something the board has chosen not to enforce because it's pretty silly. But we literally can't take that off the books without a vote of 70% of the membership. Not 70% of those who vote, 70% of the actual membership in the HOA, which is 1,197 homes. So that's why a lot of times our hands are tied. However, we can pass certain regulations and restrictions based on those bylaws.
My favorite things were always the fluff things, like doing the holiday events, the Christmas event at the pool. I still want to do that this year. I absolutely love. I finally got flags up at the entrances. I worked for a while on that. doing the Christmas lights, seeing everything come together when you've worked so hard to get these things done. Some of it does have to be hands-on. You are out there sometimes with the screwdriver, doing it yourself. And also the cameras at the entrances, knowing that the police have actually caught someone who really shouldn't have been in our neighborhood. Me and Tony and Sean worked real hard for that.
How can other residents in the neighborhood, how can they make your life easier? How they can be helpful?
I think through committee work is probably the main way, because through committee work, you're going to have a more direct connection with the board. And when it comes to operations, you're going to be able to provide valuable input to the board so they can make more intelligent decisions. So if people would volunteer for committee work in areas that they enjoy, landscape committees, one that's going to be coming up this coming year, so we can have, like I said, the input that we need from people that are passionate about that particular area of operations, and then we can make great decisions sharing that success with those committees. And if you're somebody who chooses not to serve in a committee, if you see an opportunity to serve, to help with a social event, to help make decisions on landscaping, we're also looking at probably a task force for bylaw review that we can put up for votes. These are all different areas that we'd like to be able to present to our residents as an opportunity. And to a wide degree, even renters here at Chisholm Ridge are allowed to be on committees. The only one for sure they're not allowed to be on, which would be the bylaw review committee and the ACC.
I think the main thing residents can do is come to the board meetings. Come to the board meetings and see what's going on. A lot of times people will post things on Facebook not having any idea what the history of it was or what has happened. And we don't, not me personally, but the board itself, because I'm not on the board this year, but the board itself doesn't have time to respond to all the comments on Facebook every day.
Yeah, which is true, because we, especially this past year, all 5 of us have day jobs. So we're not always as responsive as some people would like, but we have our day jobs, which is why we have a management company. And we do not monitor social media. Most of the time when we respond, it's because somebody else has brought it to our attention. I might get, in the past few months, I might get a heads up from Don, for example, or Jack, you've mentioned some things to me that we need to look at. And sometimes I'll have to go to the board saying, how should we respond to this, especially if it's something higher level serious.
If you do want to be on the board or are interested in being on the board, what to expect? Expect that things aren't going to happen overnight. It might take a couple years for something that you want to get done.
Should you be afraid to run for the board if you're not skilled at everything, especially the fiscal stuff that's involved?
No, because inevitably we'll have one member of the board who is very good at something like finances, financial review. That's great, because then that's something that they will advise the rest of the board members on. Others, like myself, I have a lot to do with public safety as well as local development in the area. So that's kind of my area of expertise. And then we have other board members who have, sometimes some board members just have better relationships with more residents at Chisholm Ridge, and that's valuable too. So everyone can bring something to the board, and that's why it's important that you take a little while, even if it's just a couple weeks, 2-3 weeks, maybe a month, to figure out how things work, to learn the history of things, and you will find your niche, because you don't have to come with a set list of qualifications. We try to avoid that. That's why our questionnaire just asks, what do you bring to the table? So besides pools and landscaping of common areas, and making sure violations are written up for violations of our bylaws and restrictions, we also do get involved in government affairs. We make sure that we have good relationships with our school district, with our city council office, with our state legislators as well, because all of their efforts impact us in one way or another. And with that bidirectional communication that we have with their offices, it helps us inform each other as well. Just like we expect our residents to communicate with us, we do the same, and we communicate with our local government And that helps us a lot when it comes to safety, when it comes to development. There's been times when we have developed even what's been called a coalition, remember? When we were opposing a rezoning request from about 4 years ago. And we pushed back hard, and we informed communities in our area as well. So now we have a network of connections with other HOAs in the area and other neighborhoods to be able to push back on something that just doesn't make sense. And when we have now been recognized, and our help has been requested by other neighborhoods when it comes to them fighting off something that may not directly impact us, but it's impacting them, so we share in that effort. And it's helping grow our community into a much more united part of town as a result. So when you first come on the board, you don't want to come in with a bunch of high expectations that you're going to make changes immediately. There's a lot to learn. And there's reasons that some of us stay on the board for different, we have different reasons, but typically it's to provide that continuity. And when we have a new board member come in, we really like that fresh energy of a brand new fresh board member coming in, because they will have perspectives that we probably need, but also it's an opportunity for us to teach them what we've been experiencing, how things work, and maybe they can, by learning from us, they can also come up with ideas to how to improve certain processes or responses and help in different areas as well. So come in, don't expect to stir the pot and make everything perfect, within your first year, because we talked about that. Sometimes it takes more than a year. I didn't jump into the board and say, I want to be president, even though I'd been on a previous HOA board for 10 years. I had to learn how things operated here, so I was happy to step in as vice president for a number of years so that I could learn from the existing president and see how things operate, be their backup at meetings, certainly, but there's a lot we can learn from more seasoned board members, but we always welcome new people to come in, because then we have a nicer balance. So, but as long as those new people come in and don't come in just to create conflict.
Y'all do, I'm assuming there is a learning curve until a person on the board begins to realize that all of us who are not on the board know how to do your job a lot better than you do, right?
It hits you like a Mack truck.
That's true, because sometimes I might get that message at 11 o'clock at night, but when I send them the information they need, a direction to go in, just getting that simple thank you, that keeps us going.